Good morning, children. Myself, Dr. Devbrata Mukherjee, PGT Biology, Kendra Vidyalaya number 1, Kachrapada. Today, we shall discuss about the Pteridophytes and Gymnosperms under the plant kingdom. First, we will talk about the gist of the lesson. In this part, we will discuss about Pteridophytes, Gymnosperms, angiosperms, plant life cycle and alternation of the generation. So we know it very well, that is the kingdom Plantae includes all the eukaryotic chlorophyll containing organisms which are commonly called the plants. So the classification in my previous lecture we have already discussed. Let us talk about the pteridophytes. Do you know the which are included as the pteridophytes? These are very common, horsetails and the ferns. And whenever, what's their specialty? We use our different purposes. That is used for the medicinal purpose, and all are the soil binders. That is the two important ecological role. These are frequently grown as the ornamentals also. And so far the tissue is concerned, first vascular tissue has developed in case of pteridophytes, that is xylem and phloem. Habitat: cool, damp, shady places, and though some may flourish well in the sandy soil conditions also. So let us talk about, see the pictures also, main plant body. Main plant body is covering sporophytes which are differentiated into true root, stems and the leaves. Talking about the leaves, it's very important. Just in the pteridophytes there are small microphyls as well as in the selaginella, and there will be the large size the macrophylus as in ferns. And the sporophytes bear the sporangia that are subtended by leaf-like appendages, that is said to be the sporophylls. And the sporophylls may form distinct compact structure, that is called the strobili or the cone. You could see it in case of selaginella and simultaneously the equisetum, both pictures you are seeing. See this pictorial representation of this piece of pteridophytes. Let's talk about the sporangia. Sporangia actually producing spores by the meiosis in the spore mother cell. The spores germinate to give rise to the inconspicuous, small but multicellular, free-living, mostly photosynthetic thalloid gametophyte. These are called the prothallus. And let us see the picture of the prothallus and how is it looking like. And ultimately the fern life cycle I am showing you. Then the gametophytes are to be discussed. These gametophytes require cool, damp, shady places to grow. Because of their specific restricted requirement and need for the water for fertilization, the spread of living pteridophytes is limited and restricted to narrow geographical regions. You see the picture of the prothallus and the ferns also. Let us going to discuss about gametophytes. The gametophyte is the reproductive phase. These bear male and the female sex organs called antheroidia and archegonia respectively. Water is required to transfer the antherozoids. The male gamete is to be released from the antheroidia to the mouth of the archegonium. I am showing you the picture of prothallus. Here you are showing the picture of the gametophytes, and ultimately the complete picture of fern life cycle is also depicted here. Very next point coming about the fusion. The fusion of male gametes with the egg present in the archegonium results in the formation of the zygote, and zygote thereafter produces a multicellular, well-differentiated sporophyte, which is the dominant phase of the pteridophytes. Then what about the spores? The spores in majority of the pteridophytes, all the spores are of similar kind. Such plants are called the homosporous. And the genera like selaginella, salvia, which produce two kinds of spores, macro, large, micro, small spores, are known as the heterosporous. So then the germination concept is to be discussed. The megaspores and these microspores germinate and they give rise to female and male gametophyte respectively. The female gametophyte in these plants are retained on the parent sporophyte for the various variable periods. The two important point about the development of seed habit. These zygote develop into young embryos which takes place within the female gametophyte. This event is the precursor to the seed habit considered as the important step for evolution. So here you see a complete the three parts of a plant body picture. Next one, talking about the classification of pteridophytes. The four classes are there. We have shown the name also: Physiopsida and the Lycopsida and the Spinopsida and the Pteridopsida. Example also. Students, let us going to discuss about Gymnosperms. You might be very common, everybody knows Cycas, Pinus are Gymnosperms, but these are the coniferous. The needle-like leaves are there, you see, and the cone containing seeds for reproduction, and a wide stem is there. And you see now root system is well developed. But why the name Gymnosperm has been given? Do you know? The Gymnosperms means the gymnos means naked, sperma means seed. These are the plants in which the ovules are not enclosed by any ovary wall, and these are being written exposed both before and after fertilization. So then talking about the seeds are there, develop the post-fertilization, are not covered, that is are naked. Gymnosperms include medium-sized trees or tall trees and shrubs also. Let's discuss about their roots. Every point is important. The giant redwood tree, that is the sequoia, is one of the tallest tree species, and the speciality of the roots are that the roots are generally taproot. Roots in some genera have the fungal association in the form of mycorrhiza pinus, while in some other cycas, small specialized roots called the sporaloid root associated with the nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria. The stems are to be concerned. Every point is important. Stems are unbranched in case of cycas and branched in case of pinus, and the leaves may be simple or compound in cycas. You see the leaves also, it is in picture of a leaves are shown. The pinnate leaves persist for the few years of course. So the one more point about the leaves in Gymnosperms are well adapted to withstand extremes of temperature, humidity and wind found in high altitude, that's why. In case of the conifers, you show the picture of conifers, the needle-like leaves reduce the surface area, the thick cuticle sunken stomata is also there. So next very important discussion, Gymnosperms are heterosporous because they produce haploid microspores and the megaspore, and the two kinds of spores are produced within sporangia that are borne on the sporophyll, which are arranged spirally along an axis to form the lax of the compact strobili of the cone. Here you see the arrangement of strobili. So there are the two types, male strobili, these bearing the microsporophyll, microsporangia, it is called the microsporagate or the male strobili, and that will form the pollen grain obviously. The microspore develop into a male gametophytic generation which is highly reduced and confined to only limited number of cells, the reduced gametophyte called pollen grains. You see how beautiful pollen grains colored picture I am showing you. Next point, talking about the female strobili, the development of pollen grains take place within the microsporangia, the cones bearing the megasporophylls with ovule, or these being megasporangia called the megasporogenate or the female strobili. So next point coming about the ovules. The megaspore mother cell is differentiated from one of the cells of a nucellus. The nucellus is protected by envelopes and the composite structure of an ovule. So for the ovules are concerned, these are borne on the megasporophylls which may cluster to form the female cones. Megaspore mother cell divides meiotically to form the 4 pieces of megaspores. Let us talk about the megasporangium. One of the megaspore enclosed within the megasporangium develop into a multicellular female gametophyte that bear 2 or more archegonia of the female sex organ. Let us see some picture of angiosperms. Our next topic to talk about angiosperms. Angiosperms is of the flowering plant especially. The pollen grains and ovules are developed in specialized structures called flowers. The seeds are enclosed by the fruits. Exceptionally larger group of plant occurring in wide range of habitat. The range in size from tiny, almost the microscopic Wolffia. It is important point, microscopic angiosperm Wolffia, tall tree, the eucalyptus. You see eucalyptus. Let us see the pictures of angiosperms. Wolffia picture I am showing you. Side by I am showing you the eucalyptus. So the classification is to be discussed. There are the two types, dicotyledonous, monocotyledonous. The dicotyledons arranged by having two cotyledons in their seed, monocotyledon having only one seed. I have shown you the picture also. So far the male sex organ is there in a flower in a stamen. The stamen consists of the slender filament with a anther at the tip. Anther following the meiosis produce the pollen grains. Let us talk about the female sex organ. The female sex organ in flower is pistil or the carpel. Pistil consists of an ovary enclosed one or many ovules. So far ovules are concerned. Within ovary present highly reduced female gametophytes, the termed as embryo sac. Embryo sac formation is preceded by the meiosis. Let us see the picture of embryo sac. And the embryo sac speciality is that when we will consider formation is preceded by meiosis, each of the cell of embryo sac is haploid. Each embryo sac has a 3-celled egg apparatus, one egg cell, two synergids, three antibodal cell, two polar nuclei. The polar nuclei eventually fuse to produce diploid secondary nucleus. So whenever the transfer of pollen grain, that is the pollination, we have to discuss about it. It is found in the here pollen grains after dispersal from the anthers carried by wind or various other agencies to the stigma of a pistil. This is termed as a pollination. Here I have shown you complete life cycle. You follow this. One more important point to discuss, syngamy. Pollen grains germinate on a stigma and this being resulting pollen tube grow through the tissues of stigma style and reach to the ovule. The pollen tube enter the embryo sac where two male gametes are discharged. One of the male gametophyte fuses with the egg cell to form zygote, that is syngamy. All the points are there. So let us talk about double fertilization. You see the picture. In case of what's double fertilization? What about the first male gamete, that is forms syngamy, and the other male gamete fuses with the diploid secondary nucleus to produce diploid primary endosperm nucleus, that is called PEN. This is an important terminology because of the involvement of two fusions, even termed as a double fertilization unique to organisms. So how the endosperm formation is going on, let us see. This is a beautiful picture I have shown you. Zygote develops into an embryo with one or two cotyledons as per the classification, and the PEN develops into endosperm which provide nourishment to the developing embryo. The synergids and the antipodals degenerate after fertilization. So ultimately development of seeds and fruits. During the events, ovules develop into seed, ovaries develop into fruit. So again I am showing you life cycle of the angiosperms. The very next we have to talk about, friends, the plant life cycle in nutshell and the alternation of the generation. Exactly in the plants, the both haploid and diploid cells can divide by meiosis. This ability is to be leads to the formation of different plant bodies. One is haploid and diploid. This haploid plant body produces gametes by the mitosis. This plant body represents a gametophyte. Following fertilization, zygote divides by the mitosis to produce a diploid sporophytic plant body, and the haploid plant body produces gametes by the meiosis. It is okay. So the haploid spores, when these are formed, the haploid spores are produced by the plant body by the meiosis. We know it, we have discussed it. That is divided by the mitosis to form haploid plant body one again. So during the life cycle of an sexually reproducing plant, there is an alternation of generation between gamete which are producing haploid gametophyte and spores producing diploid sporophytes. So the first life cycle is the haplontic life cycle. Sporophytic generation is represented only by one cell zygote, and there are no free living sporophytes. Meiosis in the zygote results in the formation of haploid spore. The haploid spore divide mitotically and form the gametophytes. So dominant photosynthetic phase in some plants, free living gametophytes are there. So here I have shown you the picture of haplontic life cycle. Next, talking about the diplontic life cycle. Diplontic life cycle is exactly the type wherein the diploid sporophyte is the dominant photosynthetic independent phase of the plant. The gametophytic phase is represented by the single to few cell haploid gametophyte. This is called the diplontic. So what is the example of a diplontic life cycle? An algae, the fucus, represents the pattern. In addition, all seed-bearing plants, gymnosperms, angiosperms, following this pattern with some variation. So the gametophyte phase is few to multi-cell. All seed-bearing plants, gymnosperm, angiosperm, follow this pattern specially. So next, we will talk about the third type, haplodiplontic life cycle. Bryophytes and pteridophytes, interestingly, exhibit an intermediate condition, haplodiplontic. Both phases are multicellular. So, however, they differ in the dominant phase. Gametophytic phase is independent. Sporophytic phase is the dependent on gametophyte. And last, I have shown you assignment. You go through the lecture and then assignment, MCQs and the references. So all the links are there, my lecture YouTube links, common YouTube links, chapter wise YouTube, the links of the video of class 12 has been shared with you for your study. You go through these, and thank you very much.